going to go with as the word of the day today. Careful consideration of what will be necessary or what might happen in the future. Forethought.
Thank you, Drew. Our next role today is the timer, which is being handled by Jem. Jem, please tell us about the timer role.
Absolutely, Mr. Toastmaster. So the timer is the timer. I will be keeping track of the time that is spent during the table topics, during the speeches, and I'll try to keep track depending on your role and depending on the length of the speech. So I will be using the app, the Toastmasters app, as well as I'm going to have virtual backgrounds. So we'll set the timer to show that my background is going to be green when you're on track. And when you hit the maybe 30-second limits, I will turn it into yellow. And then when you pass your time limits, I will turn it into red. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jem. Our next role, which required some forethought, is given by Vince, our 1-minute Toastmaster. Please go ahead, Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmasters, fellow tech masters, and our guests. The 1-minute Toastmaster role is a way to make sure that you are getting the most out of your membership. And today, according to the theme, I wanted to talk about planning. It's often said if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Now, what that means here is that if you are not planning ahead, getting a plan for what you're trying to accomplish, then you are essentially doing the same thing as attempting to fail. So from a Toastmasters perspective, what we try to do is we try to have a little bit of forethought and think about what are we going to need to do to achieve our goals. Of course, our mentor will help us with that. And if you have a mentor, you can always reach out to them. If you don't have a mentor and you want one, because maybe you had a mentor when you first joined, but you don't have one anymore, advanced members can still have mentors. A mentor will help you plan. But at the same time, you can plan by yourself. Always make sure that you plan ahead. What is your current goal and how are you going to achieve it? And then you can go step by step to approaching and accomplishing your goal. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Vince. Some great comments for our group. Our next section is the fabulous table topics impromptu speaking portion. I will now turn it over to our table topics master, Mr. Loris Holmberg. Go ahead, Loris.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Hey, we're gathered here, and once again, I went out to the internet, scanned the news accumulators, and came up with some interesting topics. Mike, are you eligible?
I am.
You are, okay. Scientists say the end game for COVID is uncertain.
Mr. Topic Master, the headline, the scientists say that the end game for COVID is uncertain, is only as uncertain as everything else in life is uncertain. We cannot know which way we're going to be going. And with a little bit of forethought, you come back to the conclusion that there are a lot of things in this world that are uncertain. But one thing that is definitely for certain is that fear is not going to take us to a better place. If anything, what it'll do, it is going to bring us to it's going to limit us. It's going to stop us from doing things, from trying things. And I think that fear is perhaps the biggest thing that we should be afraid of. And as far as uncertainty, we only know for sure just a couple of different things. And that is that the sun comes up and the sun goes down and the world turns, and we're here for a brief time and we get a chance to try to make an impact. So having the right kind of an attitude, finding the reason to keep going, I think that's where we come into this, and we have to keep doing what we can to do our part. Mr. Topic Master.
Thank you, Mike. Colin, are you eligible?
Yes.
Okay. Tent cities are now part of the American landscape?
Tent cities are growing, and I expect they're going to be growing more in the future. However, I think that we should look to Salt Lake City, where they are taking the homeless and people out of tent cities and putting them into regular residential neighborhoods with social workers, where those who have mental health issues and who have problems taking their medications get treatment and get support, job training. They have the ability to have showers and clothing, and they found that that has reduced a lot of costs of dealing with the homeless in tent cities. Their medical bills go way down. They don't end up in ER. They take their medications. They're able to work. They're able to get reliable, healthy food, and all at a lower cost by being inside a regular house, a group home in most cases, with social support. So I think that in the future will help us deal with tent cities.
Thank you, Colin. Chris, are you eligible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Virginia is set to remove Richmond's General Lee statue on Wednesday.
All right, thank you for that request to share my perspective on the removal of General Lee's statue. I'm all for it. I know that there is certainly some of those who are against it just due to the fact that it represents history. And I think it's important to make sure that we do remember history and learn from the mistakes that we made so that we don't repeat them. However, the purpose of a statue is usually, in my opinion, to recognize or to pay homage to someone or something. So having a statue like that for somebody who did many things that we would consider crimes nowadays and is had the sort of mindset that we're trying to move away from and be progressive is not the type of statue you want to have. We don't want to pay homage to that. We want to remember that it happened so that we can make sure that we don't go down that path and educate our future generations about those things. But we don't necessarily want to pay homage or lift that sort of image up. So my perspective on removing the statue and any other statues like that or naming of government, federal, state buildings is something that should be done, and I completely agree with it. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Chris. Mark. Mark, your microphone is off.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm eligible.
Okay, good. All right. Why don't you give us a little forethought on what will happen in El Salvador? In a global first, they are adopting Bitcoin as their currency.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that. What do I think will happen? I'm pleased to share my perspective. I think global currency implies that it will be the major form of currency, if not the exclusive form of currency. And what I'm reminded of is back when the US was, forming the union, and one of the federal duties was in commerce, not necessarily enforcing commerce, but having a consistent form of currency such that whatever we're using for this monetary value in Utah, for example, is worth the same as it would be in Delaware. So kind of keeping that consistent. What I'm concerned about and curious about from a global perspective, where you've got all these different sort of financial ecosystems going on that are confined to each local area, and then you've got a global thing like Bitcoin that's meant to hold value across all these different financial ecosystems. There's probably two possible outcomes. One, it's going to be fantastic for those that maybe are a little bit below the curve. It's probably going to be a disaster for some that are maybe a little bit above the curve. I'm not really sure. But those are my meandering thoughts on using something that's a little more volatile as Bitcoin than, say, the gold standard for basing your commerce on. Thank you, Mr. Holmberg, or Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Mark. Drew. Young pot consumers twice as likely to suffer from heart attacks.
Could you repeat that?
Young pot consumers twice as likely to suffer from heart attacks.
Oh, I see. Well, Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, one of my favorite essays to do when I was a freshman in high school was about the dangers of smoking, actually. Smoking causes all sorts of awful cardiovascular complications, hardens the arteries, narrows them, raises your blood pressure. It would not surprise me in the least if smoking pot, which is the way I think a lot of people consume it, does the same. And I imagine that similar complications to smoking tobacco are common in people who habitually smoke marijuana. I would be extremely curious to see if the same result holds for people who use edibles or consume it with devices that don't produce smoke, given to understanding that the volcano pot vaporizer thing produces a smokeless gas rather than the smoky, stinky cloud that simply smoking dried plant would. So that's both not surprising, but also I would be curious how universal it is among pot users. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Brad, are you eligible?
I'm eligible for everything, the NFL draft, NBA draft, even table topics.
Okay, Brad, since you're eligible for all of them, tell me how you would do if the NBA called up today. Would you be a rising star?
Thank you, Table Topics Master, fellow tech masters, and honored guests. I'm 5'10". I wasn't gifted with height. I used to be fast when I was little, but that NBA. My go-to sport was wrestling. Yeah, if any one of you want to wrestle, I'm up for it. But then there's like weight limits, weight groups, things like that. So I'd prefer if we were in the same weight limit. But no, NBA. I think what we need to do when we're children, if you have children, expose them to as many sports as possible. I know a lot of people today, they're just so ingrained on getting their kids into college so they get a free ride in whatever sport that is. My daughter figure skates. That's very competitive. You see all these kids doing hockey all day long. Spring, summer, fall, winter. That's their only goal, is to play hockey at a high level and skate as the best they possibly can. In hindsight, or with forethought, it's good to expose kids, in my opinion, to as many as possible. Just let them enjoy, have fun, meet new friends, and just find they have fun with. You know, if you look at all those metrics on who makes it to that top tier, it's really small. It's just a fraction of a percent. And at the end of the day, have fun, no matter what it is. We all have limitations. I have plenty. And we just need to find things that keep us entertained, areas that meet our curiosity, and things like that. So no, I will never be an NBA player, probably a statistician or something like that. And that's my call to action is do as many things as you can. We'll all fail, learn from those failures, but most importantly, have fun. Mr. Table Topics Master, back to you.
Thank you, Brad. I agree with you. Having fun is an important part of life. It's one of the components. Yeah. Okay, Sam, are you eligible today?
Yes, Mr. Table Topics Master, and I will keep track of my time as well as an additional challenge.
All right, good. Thank you, Sam. Warning of an income gap. Xi, who is the leader of China, tells China's tycoons to share wealth.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. This is a very interesting topic. Should the wealthy share their wealth with the lower income people in China? I fundamentally disagree with that, as well as what China has been doing for many years. Obviously, we have seen over and over again in terms of, you know, which system works, which system does not work when it comes down to personal freedom, free markets. And we have also seen China not following these practices, even recently, where overnight they took away all the education companies' revenue streams completely overnight. And the people who were earning their lives, and these were thousands of people, ended up with nothing, no income overnight, because the president at that time said none of the educational companies should earn income. I don't think this is acceptable because that creates unpredictability, unpredictable business environments. And I don't think that it would be healthy for anyone. And this path and decision that Z has also has a similar consequences, right? It changes the way an economy works, and it doesn't work that way. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Back to you.
Thank you, Sim. And we will, thank you, Sim. We will have one last table topics. Okay, between Max and Nathaniel and Vince, who would like to take the last table topics? We're running out of time.
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay, Vince. All right, we'll go with you. Okay. The USA is working with the Taliban on flying the remaining Americans out of Afghanistan. Vince?
Well, thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow tech masters and honored guests. Pentagon is working with the Taliban to are we looking at Americans or Afghani citizens? I'm forgetting.
The USA is working with the Taliban on flying remaining Americans out of Afghanistan.
All right. Well, there's a lot to be said in 1 to 2 minutes that that we won't be able to get to, but on this particular topic. But it would have been nice if we had a little bit of forethought in the decision to go to this war and the proper way to pull out in a manner that would result in as few lives as possible. Of course, I've always been against ever starting this, so it's good that we're getting out. But when you have a large contingent of people who have been either American or on our side, who are then left to fend for themselves without any kind of transition, the results could be very bad. It's nice that we are trying to work with them to remove Americans out, but it would be nice if we were to say, hey, who else wants to leave? If that's the way they want to do things, or if maybe we could, carve out a Talibanistan or something along those lines, right? Where, look, if you want to have that kind of life, do that. But whenever it's said and done, it would be nice if we had never gone, if we let them self-determine, and then they wouldn't be put in such a difficult position. So it's nice that we're getting Americans out. I don't know if I trust working with Taliban at all. If maybe doing things like, here are the people that we like removed, it will kind of give them carte blanche to be able to find those people. And if they don't like specific ones, they don't turn them over. Oops, sorry, we couldn't find them. That kind of thing. So there's a lot of problems in the situation there. Not happy with everything we've done there in the last 20 years. So I don't think there would have been a solution that would have made me or anybody else happy. Mr. Tabletop Master.
Thank you, Vince. We are now done with table topics, and Kevin will lead us to the break here. Kevin.
Thank you, Loris. Great table topics question today. I did notice that Brendan was able to join our meeting, so welcome, Brendan. We are now going to take a 5-minute break while we prepare and give some forethought to our speaking and evaluating portion of our meeting. We will resume at 8:22. My clock just turned to 8:17. We will have our speakers, evaluator, general evaluator start talking on the next portion. So everybody else, take a break. We'll see you in 5 minutes. Our general evaluator today is Brad, picking up from Mike Gressman. Thank you, Brad. Why don't you go ahead and figure out our speakers and evaluators in order.
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Welcome back, everybody. And today for speeches, we have Max and Nathaniel. Are you ready to go? And please post your speaking title in the chat, along with the time that you plan to prepare or you need. And then I will suit you up with a evaluator. Today's evals are Mark and Colin. All right, Colin, welcome. And
I just sent you a direct message, Brad, with the title of the speech. I'm going for 5 to 6 minutes. If it ends up longer, I'll be surprised.
So Nathaniel, when would you like to have your green start at?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay.
okay. All right. Max, do you have a title? You said no slides.
I don't have slides either.
Okay. Oh, nice. I respect the speakers that can speak without slides. It requires a lot more forethought.
Good word of the day.
Max,
All right.
when would you like to have your green start at?
Yes, mine is usually 5 to 7 minutes speech.
All right, and I'm gonna pair you guys up so the evaluators can get their eval sheet. Let's go M to M. Max to Mark. Then we're just going to wild card here, Nathaniel to Colin. So Max, send Mark your evaluation form, or is it the general one?
It's a general one.
All right,
Okay.
cool.
And Colin, I have a form that I will send you via the Zoom chat. We'll see that come your way in just a second.
And is there a preference as regard to who wants to go first? I know no one has a slide deck. We would typically go with the slide deck first. Otherwise, I will choose. If anyone has a preference, let me know.
I can go either.
Yeah, same.
Okay. I'm going alphabetical. And Max, you're first. Nathaniel second. So Mark, you'll be the first evaluator. Colin, you'll be the second evaluator for Nathaniel. So Max and Mark, Nathaniel, Colin. Max is going first.
All right, speakers, can you send me your speech titles and introduction?
Hey, Max, what's your speech called?
My speech is exercises and mental health during pandemic.
Exercises and mental health during pandemic. Brilliant.
Okay, Max, do you have any particular introduction for me to give?
No. You can give me anything you like.
Oh, I could be really obnoxious with that one.
Fortunately, you're only the evaluator, not the Toastmaster, Mark. Though I do confess, as I was thinking about my Toastmaster role, I was trying to come up with some of the things that you do, and that my brain is not wired that way.
Yeah, it's not nice. It could be fun though. You make it fun.
And Nathaniel, what is the title of yours?
It's the funniest 10 seconds.
And Nathaniel, do you have any special introduction?
Good at follow through, but not so great at planning. That's about all I got. See, I didn't plan to have this introduction. So.
Are either of your speeches a part of pathways requirements?
Mine is I'm on a humor pathway.
Oh,
excellent.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab a couple of right back.
Right, we will get going here in just 1 minute.
All right, I ended the share so that Max can be kind of up on everybody's screen. Max, you'll want to make sure you put Jem on your screen so you can see his background for the time.
Yep, thank you.
Looks like everybody is back, so we will get started with the next portion of the meeting, which are the prepared speeches. We have two great speakers today, both of them veterans of our group, Max and our current club president, Nathaniel. First up today is Max with his speech, Exercises in Mental Health in the Pandemic. Max has been doing some great work and speeches with us. Hope we can get some of the later parts of your continuing ones. This one is not a pathway speech, but a great topic for us as our pandemic continues and we need to do a little forethought on planning as to how we can keep ourselves safe there. So take it away, Max.
Thank you, Mr. Kevin. First, I need to apologize because I now live in the basement. So once in a while, you guys will hear the noise from the background of running the system in the basement. So apologize for that. First, I'd like to know, has anyone here experienced stress, depression, or anything, anxiety during the pandemic last year? Please raise your hand. Oh, wow. Just 4 of them. Oh, wow. You guys are in a pretty good shape here. So I myself experienced depression during the pandemic. I think it's most likely because of the social distancing. I follow them religiously, which means I just stay in the house, only go out for the grocery shopping or just walking around the neighborhood. So I think that does have impact on myself. Now, the good part is, based on the report from the Kaiser Family Foundation, They are a nonprofit organization focusing on national health issues. There are 4 in 10 US adults with symptoms of anxiety or depressive disorders during the pandemic in 2020 compared to 1 out of 10 in 2019. So that's 4 times. Another study from Boston University had a similar result. They say that the depression rate tripled, going from 8.5% to 27.8%. According to the Kaiser study, young adults from 18 to 24 were most affected. They were more likely to report depressive symptoms, use substances, and contemplate suicide. CDC has a report for June 24th and 30th in 2020, stating that 1/4 of young adults seriously consider suicide during the last 30 days. International Labor Organization survey shows that 1 in 2 adults aged from 18 to 29 were affected by depression and anxiety, and 20% of healthcare workers suffer from anxiety and depression. The kick is that the World Health Organization survey of 130 countries show that 93% has disrupted or stopped mental health services. So how could one cope with depression in the meantime? The relationship between physical activity and mental health has long been known. The WHO and CDC researchers show that people who are physically active are happier, experience a higher level of excitement, they are more satisfied with life, and have higher self-esteem. In 2014 study, Jaap Knappens and his team from Department of Rehabilitation Science from Leuven University in Belgium concludes that the effects of exercise for mild and moderate depression may be comparable with antidepressant medications and psychotherapy, and may be a valuable complementary therapy to traditional therapy for the severe depression. Brazil survey during COVID-19 shutdown supports the study. The survey shows that people who did 30 minutes of moderate or more than 15 minutes of vigorous activities a day had lower odds of having depression, anxiety, or both. People who were sedentary for longer than 10 hours a day were more likely to have the symptoms of depression. Personally, I find that particularly true. When I feel down, either I hit a cold shower or go out for a walk, hike, jog. If I like a quick recovery, otherwise I'll hit the gym, lift some weight, go to the steam room. I just do it because it makes me feel better without any forethought about it. Now I got scientific evidence to support it. However, another way to cope with the depression is alcohol and substance. According to the American Medical Association, over 40 US states report the increase in opioid-related mortality as with ongoing substance use. Another Kaiser survey in June 2020 shows that among the essential workers, there is 25% started or increased substance use to cope with the stress and emotion related to COVID. And it's 11% for the non-essential workers. And I'd like to note that the essential workers account for 1/3 of the US adults. But what is the good news here though? In the US National Medicine Library, there are 22 studies showing that exercise can improve the abstinence, the ease withdrawals, and reduce anxiety and depression among the people addicted to illicit drugs. Physical activity had a greater impact on depression in alcohol and illicit drugs. One of those studies found that people with alcohol use disorder who did 30 minutes of light exercise during the recovery had dropped around 18% in alcohol craving and 3-fold in endorphins. Having said that, I like to stress that the exercise cannot treat the mental illness. It does, however, definitely help people with depression, anxiety disorder, and substance use disorder. Even when you are mentally healthy, exercise boosts your physical health, mood, and self-esteem. So you don't have to do much, only 30 minutes a day. That's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Max. Great thoughts there on exercise. Good positive way on dealing with the pandemic. Our next speaker today is Nathaniel Engelsen. Nathaniel, as I am somewhat envious of, has chosen humor as his next Pathways journey. So we're eagerly awaiting his speech today on the funniest 10 seconds. Please go ahead, Nathaniel.
All right, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Listen, guys, before we get started, I got to give you a content warning here. This one's actually really, really gross, but it was hilarious when it happened, all right? Now, I'm going to tell you a story of one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me as a young man, all right? It's only about 10 seconds long. It was just madcap when it occurred. Now, sure, we've all heard a comedian tell us a joke that, made us laugh until we cried. I've had that too, but I actually was there for this one. And of course, that was me being there, not you. Maybe this story is a lot of you had to have been there. But let me set the stage, all right? A lot of you guys are dads, right? A lot of you guys are pet owners. This combines fostering young dogs, 4 or 5 weeks old. This combines a very pregnant ex-wife. And of course, me being the great husband that I am, all right? Although I just realized just now it's an ex-wife, so maybe I could have been better. I'm a good one now, I promise. All right, it's 21 years ago. Ex-wife is pregnant with the first one. It's after dinner, we're laying around. She was telling me, "Oh, you're being too funny. You're gonna make me pee." Wife gets 6 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant. That baby pushes on everything, pushes on that bladder. Stop, I'm gonna pee. So this is where I start to be a really good husband. Of course, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to do that. All right, so I just keep telling jokes, and we're about ready. We're just giggling and a little giddy, and with a little bit more forethought, we would have been paying attention to the puppies a little bit more. But no, bedroom door was shut. They're just running around. We look over. Oh, I got to tell you, the puppies, Cherry and Kate. Cherry was this blonde lab puppy, like I said, 5-6 weeks old. Kate was this dark dachshund mix. We could tell them apart completely. It's very easy. Cherry has an accident. And I don't mean just a little number 1, right? She just has, boom, right there. We're like, oh no. We were paying attention to each other. Weren't paying attention to the dogs, right? We see this happen. I guess my wife at the time, she drew the short straw. She gets up, she waddles over to the bathroom, grabs some toilet paper, comes to clean it up. Cherry is like, "What are you doing? I just made that. You can't have it." She grabs it. My wife goes, oh no. And she goes to grab it again. And I'm laughing my butt off. All right. And she's cackling too. It's hilarious. Cherry's like, no, I'm keeping this. And she gets it. She gets it all down. Oh, so gross. She was holding on to that one. We go, no. Oh my God. My wife was literally taken aback. She takes a step or two back. She didn't realize that Kate had gotten in on the action and also had an accident right behind her. Kate had done some real quick trigonometry to figure out exactly what was going to happen. Kate and Cherry obviously must have made eye contact. Kate did it right where my wife and her bare feet were about to step. So she steps back, wham, lands right on it. She goes, no. She's looking at it. She looks at her foot. She starts falling over. I laugh. She catches herself, slams her foot on the ground. All right. And then she goes, no. And she just laughs, and I laugh, and she goes, oh. And she had to sit down on the ground. I finally made her laugh so hard. You know, she had her accident, right? Kate, Terry, Colleen. It was a huge mess. Here's where I was actually a good husband too, though, of course. I mean, I got up. I took care of everything at the end, taking care of Kate and Cherry, those are girl names. Took care of all my girls. And that was like, man, 10 seconds. And it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I was almost paralyzed because of how much I was laughing so hard. Maybe you did have to be there, but gosh, I know you guys are thinking about, man, those pregnant wives that we've had, or the crazy dogs, and it all came to a head all in those, just the funniest 10 seconds of my young life. But let's be honest, it combined the other great thing too, at that time, because, wife, kid, puppies, it's all great. But, I kind of won, didn't I? Right? I got it to do anyway. Thank you so much. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Great story. And that would be an awesome sitcom episode. Wow. All right. Ending on that great smile note, I am happy to turn the meeting over to our general evaluator, Brad. Hey, Brad, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. All right. 2 fantastic speeches today. Send your best speaker vote my way. My name is Brad. In your list of participants, send a direct message to Brad with who you thought. Difficult choice, Max or Nathaniel. Send a direct message to me and I'll tally those votes. Up next, however, is our evaluators, and leading us off will be Mark. Mark will be evaluating Max. Mark, take it away.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. General Evaluator. Max, good speech. And I think very good topic also. A lot of us, including myself, had some effects during pandemic, maybe not to the point of mental health issues, but certainly, excuse me, a bit froggy this morning, but certainly mental anguish things. So, and I do agree with the premise that using exercise to combat some of those things is indeed a very healthy way to deal with it. But we're not here to talk about my feelings about exercise. This is an evaluation. So I want to talk about some things that you did well and some things you might want to improve. So to begin with, some things that you did really well. I thought that the way you organized the speech was great. You started off with what your main topic was. You engaged the audience. How many people here felt that they've suffered, so on and so forth, got a little bit of a reaction, followed up on that reaction? I thought that was a great idea, great way to engage. And then followed through with some interesting anecdotes and statistics about mental health issues, ways to combat them, both with exercise and with chemicals, and showed some proof why exercise is a better way to deal with it. I thought that was a great way to do it. And a couple things about your delivery I thought really catching is your use of gestures. When you talked about some of the statistics, I noticed your face was a little down. And then when you talk more about the exercise, you were a little brighter. Your eyebrows got into it. And also you used your hands a lot too, which I thought was very effective and a good way to relate to it. A couple of things that you might want to work on with respect to it. Eye contact. I noticed that, I'm going to try to demonstrate, but I noticed that your eyes kind of went from one corner to another as though the screen was here, maybe notes were here. You might want to work on that because it's real easy to see eyes. And a couple things, I can share what I do. I'm not great at it, but I've got this by my camera. I just put pictures up. So for example, a picture of Rita Moreno, so I can make contact with someone on the camera and it helps, keep my focus there. And something too you might want to consider with like notes, own them. Here's my notes that I'm using that I took for your speech. So maybe something, you can even be more entertaining with it. Concerning statistics with mental health, did you know that so-and-so, cool. and then maybe tie it back to the audience. So those of you who responded to it, what do you think about? That's something that Mike Benkovich does all the time, find ways to tie things together. That's a good way to carry on as well. And then lastly, let's see, conclusion. I thought that your conclusion was a little weak, and it might be a good idea to tie back the things that you've done and tie back some of the points that you've made, maybe relate back to the audience. For those of you who felt a little down, here are some things you can try next time, or with forethought, do this and maybe your symptoms won't be quite as bad, so on and so forth. So that's my advice to you. I thought the things you did really well, your speech construction and delivery is really well. I think just work on the eye contact a bit and work on your conclusion, and I think you'll have a much better speech. Thank you, Max, and thank you, everyone.
Great advice.
Thank you, Mark. Our next evaluator for the day is, and I believe your inaugural eval, is it Colin? Colin will be evaluating Nathaniel. Colin, take it away.
Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry for that. So the funniest 10 seconds were actually pretty funny. And one of the first things that struck me was that the start out of the conversations, he had great hands. The pitch of his voice as he moderated it, going up and down, was good. The volume was excellent as well, where he would emphasize certain points and not emphasize. He had great visual descriptions of what was going on, of the great 10-second disaster. Had good pausing, and that's very important in humor, is to have a good pause. One of the things that impressed me actually the most was when he was talking about stepping back, and he went, Nathaniel went like this, where he stepped back in the picture. And I thought that was a real important visual that he did. He had the clicking of the fingers. It was very obvious that it was, he had a good opening. I really liked how he had obviously prepared for the presentation, how he continued to go from well-paced, where he'd slow down some, and then he would then pick things up. And generally, I had a hard time finding any really good suggestions. There was one time he kind of looked down to the left, I think, to check a note. The other is that after so much visuals and the big climax of the big scene, the closing kind of was a little bit weak, I think. Not, overall, I think it was very, very good. And what I think what really made it great was hands, volumes, facial expressions. I could see some of the people actually laughing. So he gets points for that. So overall, in summary, I would say that great hands, good pitch, good visuals, the pauses, stepping back, the obvious preparation, painting the picture, and the suggestions of just kind of working on the closing. So in conclusion, I give it back to you, General Evaluator.
Thanks, Colin.
All right, thank you, Colin, for the evaluation. All right, send your best evaluator vote my way. That's, again, a direct message to Brad, and I'll tally them up. In the meantime, our timer report. Jem, how are we for time? Jem, you're on mute.
All right, Mr. General Evaluator, thank you so much. So my clock shows 8:45. So we're 1 minute ahead overall. In terms of the 1 minute Toastmaster, it was right under. In terms of the court jester, it was 55 seconds. All the table topics responses were under 2 minutes mark, very close to 2 minutes. In terms of the speeches, Max, you shot for 5 minutes, but it took 6 minutes and 26 seconds. Nathaniel, you ended right at 4 minutes and 50 seconds. In terms of the evaluations, Mark, your evaluation was 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Colin, your evaluation was 3 minutes and 5 seconds, right over the mark. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, thank you, Jem. And Loris, please give us your wise old owl for the day.
The wise old owl, which is given to the person who did the best table topics. I will give it to you, Brad, because you made a comment going into table topics about maybe the NBA would call the day, maybe the NFL would call. And I asked you what you would do if the NBA called, and I thought you gave a very good answer to that. And I also would like to say that I thought everyone today at Table Topics did a very good job on having a fluent answer to what I asked. So Brad, congratulations.
Sorry, guys, I'm talking to the NBA. The Bulls just called me. Thank you, Loris, appreciate that. Our grammarian report with word picture. I'm curious if there's a word picture today. A lot of adjectives used in these speeches today. Drew, please give us your grammarian report.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Had a lot of good word of the day usage. Mike, Kevin, Max, and also you, Mr. General Evaluator, although it was during a break, so I don't know if it counts. Half credit, say. Colin, I heard quite a few odds and ums when you were talking. Try to get that down a little bit. Mark, I heard a few uhs when you were doing your table topics, and noticed that you do a thing where you repeat the first letter of a word once in a while. I apologize if you're like working through a stutter or something. I don't mean to like make a big deal out of it, but it's something I noticed that you were doing when I think you were stalling for time just a little bit. As usual, I have a bunch of ahs and ums. I seem to be much worse at this when I'm talking to a laptop than talking to people. I'm not sure if anybody else notices that. Word picture of the day has got to go to Nathaniel's situational comedy. What's the word? Slapstick. There you go. With his ex-wife and their 2 dogs. That was quite the vivid scene, and I appreciate that quite a bit. Thank you, Nathan. And back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, thank you, Mr. Grammarian. All right, the time we've all been waiting for. And wow, look at that, we are right on time. The best evaluator goes to it's a tie. We have a tie, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations, Colin and Mark. Best Speaker Award. The Best Speaker Award goes to, and last time I checked, we were still a tie there as well. And the award goes to, it's a tie. It's a tie Tuesdays. They were both excellent speeches. That was neck and neck. All right, congratulations, Max and Nathaniel. General evaluation of meeting, for a day after a holiday, it felt sleepy for me to begin this meeting, but Mike's fantastic old lady in the car meeting the cop story got me alive, and I appreciate that. The humor there was fantastic to just wake me up, so I appreciate that, Mike. And I think Vince's 1 minute was spot on, considering our theme of the day on planning. The two speeches, well, at Loris, excellent table topics. I think that you had mentioned things that I wasn't aware of, and you just basically did a news report, and it was nice to learn a lot about that. The lease statute, didn't know about that. The Coinbase, didn't know about that. Good things to be aware of. I think current events are a great topic. Loris, appreciate those topics. Very good questions to do table topics for. Speeches were fantastic. I think there was a quite diverse set. We had the mental illness and depression during a pandemic, which I think we all feel at some point in our lives. And yeah, exercise, that gets me through things. And if you can get a chance to get away, try to go for a walk. I try to do that, even though it's not easy sometimes. I just try to get away for a walk. It helps me anyway. And Nathaniel and both speakers, kudos for not using slides. That's a crutch for me, is using slides. It's harder to do it without them, and I'd like to start doing more of that. Humor, it's very, very difficult to do humor. I'm trying to go down that path too, just learning on my own. And humor is a difficult thing to do and do well. Nathaniel, you did very well with that. And evals, Colin, fantastic for your inaugural eval. Mark, you're always great as well. That's my general eval. Mr. Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, everyone. Great stuff. For our closing portion, we have 2 awards. The Spark Plug Award is given to the member who demonstrates that extra spark of energy. And I would actually have to say, I don't have any one person today with the extra energy. I do need to reiterate what Brad's comment. It felt kind of, or at least myself, sleepy getting started after the Labor Day, but we really had some great energy all around with everybody today. So great job. The Fuzzy Mouse Award goes to the speaker who presents a technical topic in a easy to understand format. Neither of our speeches were technical descriptions, so we'll pass on the Fuzzy Mouse Award. Our closing comments, we do have Brendan back as a guest today. This is completely optional. If you are willing, you can give any comments to the meeting that you thought today.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. President Toastmaster, I think. I apologize for being absent and late this morning and gone last week. It was just getting back to school. I've got a youngster I got to get across town. So Tuesday mornings have so far been a little tricky. I thought today's speeches were great. Max, I really enjoyed yours. I think I personally would have benefited more with some slides just because of the amazing amount of numbers and stats you were sharing. It would have been nice to see a bar graph or a pie chart or something like that. That's just for me. Other than that, it's a pleasure to be back. I think everyone did a good job. And I have a call with Chris Torres today to kind of talk about next steps. And so maybe you'll be seeing a little bit more of me. Thank you.
Well, that's great. I hope so, Brendan. So thank you very much. In terms of my comments about the meeting today, again, I had said it's a really great meeting, lots of good energy, great questions on the table topics. Went slightly long on the table topics, but we did adapt. The online format is a little bit more forgiving and ability to adapt on our time as we move to in-person or hybrid meetings. We'll want to remember some of the extra time on transitioning when we get people walking up to the front, receiving the awards, and then going back. I also wanted to make a comment generally about the group. I think it's really great when we have a lot of these ties on the speakers and evaluator. To me, that demonstrates that we're, as a group, developing really well. So we have a lot of really good people who are getting some great skills and demonstrating that in their speeches. So great job to everybody there. I will now open it to any other comments from our club members. Anybody have anything they want to add?
I will just add that in the past, someone brought up the idea of a happy hour, and I think I would vote for that. And I think it's something that we should discuss at a future meeting.
Okay, we should discuss that at a future meeting. Sounds good, Lewis. We'll try to bring it up next time. In the meantime, everybody, talk about it on Slack. I want to see us in Slack more.
Great,
Slacker.
thank you. All right, any other comments? I'm hearing silence, so I will turn it back over to our presiding officer, our club president, Nathaniel Engelsen.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Great job, Kevin. Do we have any closing announcements? All right, hearing none, let me switch over the share to the schedule. Talk about next week's Toastmaster. Next week's Toastmaster is Crazy Kyle Ross. We'll have to make sure we reach out to him and see if he's back from camp and everything, and make sure he's all prepared. Kyle normally is, no real worries there. Fantastic. At this point, does our timer have a closing invocation for us?
I do, Mr. President. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But today is a gift. That's why it is called the present. Back to you, Mr. President.
Stupendous. Thank you.
Excellent.
And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Have a great week, everybody. Talk to you next week or see you around on Slack. Goodbye.
See you guys.
Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good week.
Great week.